Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, hosting this Saturday show. Up first, we've got a fire danger chart here, and not much on it. A couple of areas, or let's see, got 5 areas there, sort of reaching into the high category there. One kind of over the eastern Kobuk, western Koyukuk Valley, and then a couple areas there along the eastern upper Yukon River, but not too bad at all there. And then Copper River Basin, a couple areas there, and over toward the eastern Alaska Range. And that's about it, fire danger-wise, with all the cool temperatures and precipitation we've seen across much of interior Alaska and the Panhandle. And for hazardous weather graphics, no watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere across interior Alaska or the Aleutians, Bering Sea, as well as the Panhandle. And moving on, rainfall today over the southeast coast. So that's going to diminish tonight and possibly end over the southern Panhandle tomorrow. But showers will probably linger in the northern areas, but it'll be drier than today. And then tomorrow afternoon, another front will push more rain in, and that'll continue overnight, Sunday night, and through most of Monday. So look for 2 to 3 inches or 1 to 3 inches of rain to fall over the northern inside waters of the Panhandle there. Heaviest along the north coast and then over toward the mountainous terrain there toward the border, while the southern southeast coast during the Sunday to Monday time frame there could pick up, probably will pick up as much as an inch or so of additional rainfall. So staying in a wet weather pattern. And on the satellite, you can see there was some moisture moving through the southeast coast, kind of dissipating as it moved in today. Otherwise, weak circulation just weakened into a trough as it made landfall earlier today. And then up along the Yukon River, the brighter top clouds associated with some thunderstorm activity there today, with some areas picking up a fair amount of precipitation up there in the last 12 hours. For example, Beaver had over half an inch of precipitation 12-hour period ending at about 3 p.m. this afternoon, and showers and thunderstorms extending over toward the border and also back to the west and down the Yukon River. Some thunderstorm activity today all the way down the northern Kuskokwim Valley area. But you can see about clearing not too widespread. Looks like some sunshine broke out over the Yukon Delta, as well as the Seward Peninsula from Nome over the inland areas, and also the Kobuk Valley, Noatak Valley saw some sunshine today. In the eastern Copper River Basin and the upper Tantna Valley around North Waychisana, some sun. They also had, North Waychisana had the warmest temperatures today in the state of 72 degrees, otherwise 70 barely getting reached at mid-afternoon anywhere else in the interior, mostly in the 50s and 60s. Cooler along the Arctic coast there, high pressure north of Wrangel Island, pulling down colder, chillier air, keeping it near 40 degrees or in the upper 30s there for the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, south of the Brooks Range, showers. And then the thunderstorms along the trough through the central interior, 1,007 millibar low there near Dawson, another 1,008 millibar low there, just east of the Seward Peninsula, and the trough southwest of that carrying the precipitation and thunderstorms with it all the way down to into the Kuskokwim Delta area with showers over Bristol Bay, with king salmon picking about 0.2 of an inch in the last 12 hours. And then that trough weakening as it pushes in brought the rainfall today to the Panhandle, with Petersburg picking up a little over 0.4 of an inch, but Juneau and Gustavus both had 1/3 of an inch, and Ketchikan also about 1/3 of an inch. Those were the heavier rainfall amounts over the southeast coast today. That already changing to showers, becoming a little more becoming lighter and beginning to taper off some. Otherwise, St. Lawrence Island, Gamble, about 0.2 of an inch of precipitation with that weak trough swinging northward there slowly, bringing the rainfall, and then showers with another weak trough over the Alaska Peninsula. But the Bering Sea, under the influence of high pressure associated with light winds and widespread low clouds and fog over all the Aleutian chain through the Bering Sea, and that extends up along portions of the Arctic coast. Low pressure there over the Russian Far East, that's not going to make much eastward headway. In fact, that's going to start dropping southward. You can see it makes a pretty good jog to the south tonight to the Komodorsky Islands. And that'll spread some rain possibly into Attu Island. Otherwise, high pressure, little change over the Bering Sea, light winds, low clouds, fog, IFR flying conditions, widespread from the Aleutians northward to the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island. And a little breezy on the western Arctic coast. Could see gusts 25 miles an hour to the east or east-northeast there from Point Ley down to possibly Point Hope and Cape Lisburne. And offshore flow a little downsloping there could result in some clearing. Otherwise, look for showers possibly over the western Seward Peninsula and along that trough again through the Kuskokwim Valley, along the Yukon River there into the western Kuskokwim Valley, Kuskokwim Mountains into Bristol Bay. Look for cloudy skies with a chance of rain, fog, drizzle, or showers just about, or one of the three, anywhere there from the Alaska Peninsula all the way up to Iliamna Lake. And that low should spread some light rain into Kodiak Island tonight. Should pick up some moisture as that pushes northeastward. And also some rain could increase late tonight from the Barren Islands up into Port Muller and possibly Kachemak Bay, with showers lingering over Prince William Sound. Otherwise, mostly cloudy with diminishing showers over southern Alaska and maybe some clearing there over toward Yakutat. And showers continue, but will be in a decreasing mode, especially over the southern panhandle late tonight. And that could result with that ridging coming through in a mostly dry day, at least in part, for the southern southeast coast. I wouldn't count on much clearing. If you do see any, consider it a bonus. With rainfall increasing again along the north coast and overall the northern panhandle in the afternoon, as well as the North Gulf Coast looks wet. Kenai Peninsula, periods of rain, especially from Prince William Sound down to Seward. Kodiak Island, rain becoming more showery in the afternoon. And a trough again right along the Kuskokwim Mountains from that 1,011 millibar low there near Selawik, or actually Buckland. Will continue isolated thunderstorms in the afternoon along the trough axis and again the central interior, but nothing really widespread. Just another cloudy, damp, cool day for much of interior Alaska, much like today. And breezy, maybe see a little bit of an increase in those easterly winds. Could see gusts maybe 30 miles an hour western Arctic coast, again from Point Ley to Cape Lisburne. Chance of showers, Seward Peninsula. Low clouds, fog, again widespread with weak high pressure holding over the central Bering Sea. And now that low pressure area stalling over the Komodorsky Islands. But the front close enough to the western Aleutians to spread rain into Shemya and Attu, possibly as far east as Kiska. And taking a look at the outlook for Monday, that low pressure area drops a little bit further to the south, and that may also seems to strengthen a little bit. Could see maybe small craft advisory level winds in towards Shemya and Attu with that in the afternoon with periods of rain. Otherwise, not much change for the Bering Sea, Bering Strait, as well as the Arctic coast. Interior Alaska, maybe some partly sunny skies over the western North Slope, Brooks Range area. Isolated thunderstorms, cloudy, cool, wet once again for the central interior, southward to the North Gulf Coast, and a weakening trough, that weakening front, the front weakens into a trough in the afternoon. So it looks like wet conditions, periods of rain through the entire day Monday for the Panhandle. Looking at low temperatures tonight down that way, mostly in the lower to mid 50s there for the southeast coast, and actually 50 to 55. Pretty good forecast, Kodiak Island into south central Alaska, as well as the western and central interior with upper 40s for the Yukon Delta and the Pribilofs, upper 40s for the Aleutians, and down to close to freezing along the Arctic coast with lower to mid 30s over the North Slope. Highs tomorrow, again, much like today, a few areas pushing 70 again with North Wake possibly up to 73, and in the 60s for the Kenai Peninsula and Susitna Valley, highs Upper 50s, maybe 60 for the Panhandle, lower 60s there for the Alaska Peninsula. And then lows for Monday morning, again 30 to 35, north slope in the Arctic coast, and the 40s for the Brooks Range into the upper Yukon Valley, otherwise 50s for the remainder of the state. And then highs again, struggling to reach 70 anywhere in the state on Monday afternoon.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic here for Sunday morning. Out in the Bering Sea, mostly IFR with some scattered areas of marginal VFR there along the Aleutians, and then marginal VFR, Bristol Bay and Yukon Delta, then back to the IFR there, Bering Strait, most of the Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound on up in toward Kotzebue Sound, and then marginal VFR there, western Arctic coast, central and east side IFR down to the eastern central Brooks Range area. Also some IFR there getting just south of the Yukon River in the eastern interior. IFR to start along the eastern slopes of the Alaska Range, also the southern slopes of the northern Alaska Range, on down across the Talkeetnas to IFR, North Gulf Coast, southern Cook Inlet, southern Kenai Peninsula, and the Kodiak Island area, mostly IFR for the Panhandle. And for the afternoon, solid IFR for the southeast coast, Gulf of Alaska, as well as the North Gulf Coast, and Prince William Sound with some marginal VFR, possibly making the central Copper River Basin, but VFR for the central eastern Alaska Range, as well as the upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, and then a marginal VFR zone there over the Yukon Flats, and right along the Yukon River, and then southward through the Kuskokwim Valley and northward across the Koyukuk and part of the Kobuk Valley into the North Slope with some lingering areas of IFR on the eastern and central Arctic coast, and a little bit more marginal VFR and less IFR out over the Bering Sea. Outlook for Monday morning, still mostly IFR for the Bering Sea with some areas of marginal VFR for the western Aleutians, as well as the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, and kind of a mix there for Kodiak Island with mostly marginal VFR for Cook Inlet and the Kenai Peninsula, but some IFR from northeast Bristol Bay across Diliamna Lake along the Alaska Range all the way around to the Talkeetnas, and then back into solid IFR for the Panhandle and Prince William Sound. And marginal VFR along the Arctic coast there with some IFR right off the coastline. And for the afternoon, more widespread VFR now for the most of the eastern interior from the Copper River Basin on up toward the Brooks Range, and then out west across the Kobuk, Koyukuk, Selawik Valleys, Noatak Valley VFR, Northwest Coast VFR, and for also Kotzebue, possibly even Shishmaref. IFR though through the strait to the north side of the St. Lawrence Island area. Bering Sea still mostly marginal with some scattered areas of marginal VFR. VFR now for Kodiak Island and Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, most of Prince William Sound, and possible marginal VFR for the Talkeetna Mountains. And Fort Passes, Anatuvik, marginal VFR, marginal for Adigan, marginal for Lake Clark and Merrill as well for Sunday, either approach, rainy, marginal VFR with IFR in the eastern entrance, windy VFR, Isabel VFR, and Mentesta VFR, Tanita, IFR, eastern entrance, otherwise marginal. Portage, IFR for the entire day. Chilkoot and White, IFR. Freezing levels, cold air with that northerly flow, upper level low west of Banks Island, bringing 2,000 feet down to, say, Kaktovik, 8,000 feet in toward the Yukon Flats, and then 10,000 feet for the Panhandle, with 12,000 foot freezing levels for Dixon entrance. As far as icing goes, look for considerable moderate rime icing here for the North Gulf Coast, westward across Prince William Sound, south side of the Kenai Peninsula, and then areas of mixed icing there in the shaded areas of the central interior, all the way back to Bristol Bay, including possibly Cook Inlet and to a lesser extent the Copper River Basin. And for the jet stream, upper level low there west of Banks Island, that's pulling that colder air down. It's just clipping the eastern Arctic coast and then on across the Mackenzie River Delta. Upper level low over St. Lawrence Island, southwest flow right into the southwest interior, Kuskokwim Valley. And then the 70-knot jet there coming over the top of some ridging over the eastern Gulf of Alaska and the Panhandle, so better conditions southern southeast coast, drier conditions there with the wetter conditions up to the north, and westerly flow across the Bering Sea. And 9,000 feet, southerlies 45 knots, but that barely reaching the southern Gulf of Alaska. And for 3,000 feet, about the same pattern, higher pressure over the Bering Sea, turbulence. With northerly winds, northeast winds, light to isolated moderate chop below 4,000 feet, western Arctic coast, moderate chop for the North Gulf coast.
It used to be that you could only warn one person about a tornado after it had already blown down someone else's barn.
Now, on average, we're able to issue a tornado warning 15 minutes before the tornado's even there, and that wouldn't be happening without Doppler radar.
This NexRad system has reduced fatalities on the order of 45% due to tornadoes since its advent.
We have a lot more information now about storms and being able to understand how they develop, how they produce severe weather, and how that information might be used to improve warnings for our National Weather Service partners.
The lab is unique in that we serve the nation by supporting the National Weather Service in its mission to protect lives and safe property by improving the accuracy and the lead time of severe weather warnings.
We have a legacy of radar research and converting existing technology from military to weather purposes.
A recycled Doppler radar led to the development of NexRad, installed nationwide in the early 90s. It allowed forecasters to see storms like never before.
Not only did we help bring that technology to the National Weather Service and to help protect lives and property, but we have continued to upgrade that technology, keep it relevant, and keep it state-of-the-art.
Recently, a major upgrade was added. Dual polarization technology takes the radar from 2D to 3D. Forecasters now know more about what type of precipitation is falling, which is very helpful during winter storms, as well as how much rain is accumulating, resulting in better flash flood warnings. The radar can also detect and track tornadoes based on debris. Looking to the future, the National Severe Storms Lab is testing the capabilities of phased array radar. Originally used by the U.S. Navy, the antenna scans the skies electronically rather than mechanically, allowing the radar to focus on a storm.
With current technology, we get a full picture or image of what is going on within a storm every 4 to 5 minutes. So it's more like a snapshot. Whereas with phased array radar, we get that picture of what's going on in the storm every minute, so it becomes more like watching a movie. So we can do adaptive, rapid scanning on the storms that matter most, being able to provide the information that's most relevant when and where it's happening.
Another advantage of phased array radar is its multifunction capability, providing weather and air traffic information simultaneously.
Number one, it is a system that promises to replace and expand upon the existing weather surveillance radars. Secondly, to replace aging air traffic surveillance radars. And number three, it offers the potential application to meet Department of Homeland Security and defense requirements for identifying and tracking non-cooperative aircraft. With the replacement of all these various radars with a single system, the American taxpayer could realize substantial savings in cost.
You have a lot fewer radars to maintain, and the electronic capability of this also reduces maintenance costs because you do not have moving parts.
Not too long ago, the ability to predict severe weather was thought to be impossible. During the past several decades, research conducted at the National Severe Storms Lab has developed life-saving tools like Doppler radar. We've progressed from no warning of threatening weather to about a 15-minute lead time, and current research promises to extend that much further.
Our knowledge of severe storms and how they behave And our use and ability to use the Doppler radar technology is in a lot of cases a direct result of that close working relationship, that research to operations component that we get between the National Severe Storms Laboratory and a forecast office.
That history and understanding of how these data can be used by our users and doing the research to help advance the use of radar technology, really it's what we live for, it's in our lifeblood, it's in our history.
It's now easier than ever to be a part of weather research. We just launched the mPing app for both iPhone and Android users, and it's totally free. PING, which stands for Precipitation Identification Near the Ground, is a research project by the NOAA National Severe Storms Lab and the University of Oklahoma. With the mobile app, you can send us your weather observations on the go. Are snowflakes falling on your head? Is hail hitting your car? Just select what type of precipitation is falling and press submit. It's that easy. It takes about 5 seconds and it's anonymous. Reports can then be viewed online. Our scientists will compare your report with what the radar has detected. This helps us develop new radar technologies and techniques. Download the app today, share your reports, and let's work together to make our nation weather ready. Learn more here and follow us.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Now it's changed from yesterday. Thinner ice from the heavier pack ice there along the central and eastern Arctic coast there, and then the heavier ice farther to the north, and then sea ice free for the western coast on down to the Bering Strait. And from there, coastal water forecast, south to southwest winds 15 to 20 knots, 7 to 8 foot seas. Small craft advisories on the north coast. South winds at 25 knots become southeast at 30 knots up toward Yakutat with seas at 8 feet. Lynn Canal, south 20 knots, seas 4 feet. Southeast 15 knots for Stevens Passage with 3 foot seas, and lighter winds for Clarence Strait. High pressure moving through, and light wind day tomorrow with southerlies at 10 knots. Those will pick up a little bit, southeast 15 on Monday with west winds 10 to 15 knots there for the south coast, and lighter winds south to southwest on the north coast at 10 knots, but sea still running 7 to 8 feet, and the central and northern inside waters looking at south winds at 15. Prince William Sound, east winds 15 knots. Cook Inlet, north winds 15 knots with 3 to 4 foot seas. Kamishak Bay, north at 15. We've got small craft advisories there for the North Gulf Coast area around Middleton Island with gales just to the east. Otherwise, east winds 30 knots there. Turn northeast 25 knots for small craft advisories for the western North Gulf Coast, and north at 25 with 6 foot seas for the Barren Islands. And for Monday, Cook Inlet, afternoon southwest breeze at 10 knots with 3 foot seas, and Kamishak Bay, west at 20 knots. Same thing for the Barren Islands. West 15 for the western North Gulf Coast, but out of the north or variable to north for the east side, and seas running 6 feet. Prince William Sound, west winds at 10 knots. And for Kodiak Island, on the east side of the island there, westerlies at 20 knots, but Shelikof Strait looking at a northeast breeze at 15. Light winds for Bristol Bay, northwest at 10 with 2 foot seas, and that wind pattern extends all the way down to Cape Sarachev on the north side of the Alaska Peninsula. South side, Cape Sarachev to Sitkinak, west winds at 15. And for Monday, Alaska Peninsula, Bering Sea side, north winds at 10 knots, 2 foot seas. South side, west winds at 10 with 5 foot seas. Castle Cape to Sitkinak and through Chillicothe Strait, west-southwest at 15, east side of Kodiak, west at 20. Bristol Bay, west winds 20 knots with 3-foot seas. Fox Islands, north or west to north or northwest winds on the light side. Really all the Aleutians except way out west there will be seeing light winds from basically the north or northwest direction with seas running 2 to 5 feet. Otherwise, Chimianatu area, southerlies at 20 knots. And then for Monday, look for those winds to hold at about 20 knots around Kiska. It could be a little higher toward Chimianatu. Might be small craft advisories if that system strengthens enough. Otherwise, the remainder of the Aleutians looking at westerly or winds at about 10 knots. Southwest coast, northwest at 10 tomorrow. Pribilof's north 15, north 20 for St. Lawrence Island, and north 10 for St. Matthew. And for Monday, northwest 20 knots for St. Lawrence Island with 5-foot seas. And the southwest coast, southwest breeze 10 to 15 knots, seas 3 feet. Light southerlies for both the Pribilofs and the St. Matthew Island area at 10 with 3 to 4 foot seas. Up along the Arctic coast, east side, light north winds at 10 knots with 2-foot seas. Northeast at 10 for the central coast. And then small craft advisories there with that tightening gradient on the west side. We've got northeast winds 25 knots with small craft advisories all the way down to Wales. In fact, look for 30 knot sustained winds from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson. That holds through Monday with those 30-knot winds, otherwise lighter for the Chukchi Sea from Cape Thompson to Wales, north at 20, 25-knot small craft advisory winds up to about Point Ley, and then lightening up to 10 knots out of the north for the central and eastern Arctic coast. Up toward Demarcation Point, they might be northwest at 15. For tonight, clouds and showers on the diminishing side in the interior, as well as the panhandle. Rain tends to increase Kodiak Island up toward the North Gulf Coast, stays damp over Bristol Bay. And for tomorrow, that low pressure area pushes eastward, and that front will spread more rain into the northern panhandle in the afternoon. Could be a dry day, though, with high pressure in the south, and a day much like today over the remainder of the state, with Monday, cool, cloudy, and damp conditions for the panhandle up into the interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.